The screeching of tires interrupted the peaceful Saturday afternoon. Martha Pemberton's sensible beige sedan skidded to a halt directly in front of the Thompson family's newly installed backyard pool, her rigid frame quivering with righteous indignation. "This is a direct violation," she bellowed, her voice carrying the precision of a drill sergeant and the pitch of an angry parrot. Her white-knuckled grip on the HOA rulebook was matched only by the intensity of her glare. Jake Thompson, still dripping from his swim, stared in disbelief. He'd lived in Oak Ridge Estates for 3 years and never, not once, had he encountered such unbridled enthusiasm for municipal code enforcement. Martha's perfectly pressed khaki pants and crisp white blouse stood in stark contrast to the chaos she was about to unleash. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun that seemed to radiate disapproval, each strand meticulously controlled, much like she intended to control every inch of the neighborhood. "The pool fence is precisely 2 inches too short," she declared, flipping through her annotated rulebook. Section 7, paragraph C clearly states that all backyard recreational water features must have a perimeter fence no less than 64 inches in height. Jake counted the inches in his mind. 64 inches, 54 inches, 10-inch discrepancy. The absurdity of the moment wasn't lost on him. "Ma'am," he began, trying to maintain composure, "the fence meets county safety regulations. It's been inspected and approved." Martha's laugh was a sharp, brittle sound. "County regulations? This is Oak Ridge Estates. We have standards that far exceed mere county minimums." What Jake didn't know, what he couldn't possibly understand in that moment, was that Martha Pemberton wasn't just enforcing rules. She was on a mission that had begun decades ago when a neighborhood dispute had transformed her from a mild-mannered elementary school librarian into the most feared homeowner association representative in suburban history. Each violation was personal to her, each rule breaker a potential threat to the carefully manicured world she helped create. The pool fence was just the beginning. "I'm filing an official complaint," she announced, pulling out a meticulously organized clipboard. Triplicate forms emerged like weapons, each carbon copy a potential strike against neighborhood disorder. Jake's wife, Rachel, appeared in the doorway. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is most certainly not okay," Martha interrupted. "Your husband has created a safety hazard that threatens the very fabric of our community." The irony was palpable. The perfectly safe pool, surrounded by a fence that met every reasonable standard, was now a crime scene in Martha's eyes, and Martha Pemberton was prosecutor, judge, and jury. Little did Jake know, this was merely the first salvo in what would become an epic battle of suburban wills. Martha had marked her target, and in her world, persistence wasn't just a virtue, it was a weapon. As she turned to return to her sit-in, clipboard clutched like a shield, Jake and Rachel exchanged a look. This was going to be interesting. The first drops of a long, contentious summer were about to fall. The first official warning arrived precisely 3 days after Martha's initial pool fence confrontation. Delivered by certified mail, the document was a masterpiece of bureaucratic precision, each paragraph a carefully constructed weapon of administrative destruction. Martha Pemberton sat in her home office, a sanctuary of order that would make military command centers look chaotic. Pinboards covered with neighborhood maps, color-coded violation reports, and meticulously tracked homeowner infractions surrounded her. A wall clock ticked with the rhythm of her calculated movements. Her computer screen displayed a spreadsheet tracking the Thompson family's potential violations. The pool fence was just the beginning. Each cell represented a potential point of enforcement, a battlefield in her ongoing war against suburban disorder. "They think they can outsmart the system," she muttered, highlighting a section of the HOA bylaws in fluorescent yellow. Her reading glasses reflected the screen's harsh light, giving her eyes an almost predatory gleam. The Thompsons had no idea what was coming. Jake discovered the first wave of Martha's bureaucratic assault when he returned home from work. Tucked into his mailbox was not 1, not 2, but 7 separate violation notices: pool fence height, landscaping edge length, garbage placement, lawn grass height, mailbox alignment, window treatments. Even the shade of his exterior paint was apparently under scrutiny. "This is insane," Rachel muttered, spreading the documents across their kitchen island. Each notice was a carbon-copied nightmare stamped and signed with Martha's distinctive razor-sharp penmanship. What the Thompsons didn't understand was Martha's personal history. 27 years ago, she watched her own carefully planned neighborhood descend into what she considered chaos. A new development had sprung up with homeowners who seemed to have no respect for collective standards. Mismatched mailboxes, unkempt lawns, boats parked in driveways. To Martha, each violation was a personal assault on civilization itself. Her transformation from mild-mannered librarian to HOA enforcer had been gradual. It started with gentle suggestions and written warnings, then a systematic approach to maintaining what she considered community excellence. The pool was just her latest project. Jake decided to fight back. He contacted the HOA board, requesting a formal review of violations. What he didn't know was that Martha was the board's most influential member, with connections that ran deeper than most residents could imagine. Her network included retired municipal workers, longtime residents, and a web of informants who reported even the slightest deviation from the established norms. Martha knew everything: when neighbors hosted parties, who was repainting their house, which teenager was parking incorrectly. The next phase of her plan was already in motion. A manila envelope sat prepared on her desk, marked with Jake Thompson's name. Inside were detailed photographs documenting every single alleged violation, annotated with precise measurements and bylaw references. Martha allowed herself a small, controlled smile. In the war of suburban compliance, she was about to unleash her most devastating weapon: absolute, unrelenting precision. The Thompsons had no idea what was coming, but Martha Pemberton was just getting started. The summer heat was unforgiving, transforming Oak Ridge Estates into a pressure cooker of suburban tension. Jake Thompson's pool, the epicenter of Martha Pemberton's crusade, became a battleground of increasingly absurd proportions. It happened on a Tuesday, not just any Tuesday, but the kind of day that would be etched into neighborhood legend. Martha had been conducting her routine surveillance, binoculars trained on the Thompson property from her meticulously maintained sunroom. Her emergency mobile phone, a device more sophisticated than most government communication systems, was always within reach. Jake was hosting a small family gathering. His young daughter's birthday party was in full swing, with inflatable pool toys, children's laughter, and the occasional splash echoing through the backyard. What Martha saw was pure, unmitigated chaos. "Unauthorized pool accessories," she muttered, documenting each inflatable unicorn and beach ball. "Excessive noise, potential safety violations." But it was the moment a beach ball sailed over the fence into Mrs. Henderson's immaculately maintained rose garden that Martha made her move. She dialed 911. "I'm reporting a serious neighborhood disturbance," Martha proclaimed to the dispatcher, her voice a cocktail of urgency and self-righteousness. "Multiple code violations, potential property damage. Immediate intervention required." The police dispatcher, having dealt with Martha before, showed remarkable restraint. "Ma'am," a dispatcher began, "is there an actual emergency?" "A beach ball has breached property lines," Martha declared. "This is a clear violation off." Before she could finish, the dispatcher interrupted. "Miss Pemberton, this is not an emergency. Please do not misuse emergency services." But Martha was undeterred. When the police cruisers arrived, two of them, lights flashing, the neighborhood came to a standstill. Children stopped mid-splash. Parents exchanged bewildered looks. Jake stood near the pool, beach towel in hand, watching in disbelief. Officers Mark Rodriguez and Sarah Chen approached, their expressions a mixture of professional courtesy and barely concealed eye-rolling. "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said, addressing Martha, "you called about a beach ball." Martha produced her documentation, carefully annotated photographs, measurements, bylaws, a comprehensive dossier that would make federal investigators look disorganized. "This is about systematic neighborhood degradation," she explained, her tone suggesting she was single-handedly preventing the collapse of civilized society. Officer Chen struggled to maintain her professional composure. A small, involuntary twitch at the corner of her mouth betrayed her amusement. What Martha didn't realize was that she was becoming a neighborhood spectacle. Residents who had previously tolerated her enforcement were now actively documenting her actions. Smartphones emerged. Social media buzzed. Jake Thompson stood at the center of this suburban storm, simultaneously amused and horrified. His daughter, blissfully unaware of the drama, continued to play in the pool. Martha had crossed a line, and in doing so, she had transformed from a neighborhood enforcer to something far more complicated. The battle was about to get personal. Within 48 hours of the 911 beach ball incident, Martha Pemberton had become an internet sensation. Memes proliferated. Local news picked up the story. Her meticulously maintained reputation was transforming into something she never anticipated: public ridicule. But Martha Pemberton was not someone who crumbled easily. Her reaction was calculated. She doubled down, filing even more comprehensive violation reports against the Thompsons. Each document was a masterpiece of bureaucratic precision, annotated with a level of detail that suggested she was fighting a war, not managing a neighborhood association. What she didn't realize was that the neighborhood was shifting beneath her feet. Longtime residents who had previously tolerated her enforcement began to see her differently. Mrs. Henderson, whose rose garden had been the supposed victim of the beach ball invasion, was the first to break ranks. "For heaven's sake," she told the neighborhood watch meeting, "it's a children's birthday party, not a federal crime." The meeting, typically a forum for Martha's meticulous reports, became something else entirely. Residents who had silently endured her enforcement began to speak up. Stories emerged of past confrontations of nitpicky violations that had gone too far. Jake Thompson, surprisingly, became an unexpected symbol of resistance. Instead of retaliating aggressively, he responded with a combination of humor and strategic documentation. He began recording every interaction, creating a comprehensive log of Martha's actions. His wife, Rachel, a corporate lawyer, saw an opportunity. "We're going to fight this systematically," she told Jake. Not with emotion, but with precise legal strategy. Martha's network of informants began to fracture. The retired municipal workers who had supported her enforcements suddenly became less communicative. Her carefully constructed web of neighborhood surveillance was unraveling. But Martha was not defeated, not even close. She saw the emerging resistance as another challenge to be managed, another problem to be solved through sheer determination and bureaucratic precision. A new plan was already forming. Martha understood that to win, she would need to be more strategic than ever before. The pool fence was no longer just about a measurement. It had become a symbol of something larger, a battle for neighborhood control. Her home office transformed into a war room. Pin boards were updated. Strategies were mapped. Each potential counterargument was analyzed and categorized. The Thompsons thought they had the upper hand. They had no idea what Martha was preparing. In the quiet of her meticulously organized study, with city maps and violation reports surrounding her, Martha Pemberton allowed herself a small, controlled smile. The real battle was just beginning. The annual board meeting was supposed to be routine. Martha had orchestrated hundreds of such gatherings over the years, each one a masterpiece of procedural perfection. But this meeting would be different. Jake and Rachel Thompson arrived precisely on time, a stack of carefully prepared documents tucked under Rachel's arm. Her corporate lawyer demeanor was a calculated contrast to Martha's bureaucratic intensity. Martha had positioned herself at the head of the table, her posture a testament to years of rigid self-control. Each board member had received her comprehensive report on the Thompson property, a 47-page document detailing every perceived violation, each claim supported by annotated photographs and precise measurements. What she didn't know was that Rachel had been doing her own investigation. Before we discuss the alleged violations, Rachel began, her voice calm and professional. "I'd like to address something more fundamental." Martha's perfectly manicured fingers, wrapped around a government-grade ballpoint pen, tensed almost imperceptibly. Rachel produced a series of documents: property records, historical HOA meeting minutes, architectural plans that dated back decades. "It appears," Rachel said, her tone surgical, "that the original neighborhood covenant, the very foundation of these regulations, was never properly filed with the county." A stunned silence fell over the room. Martha's carefully constructed world began to fracture. Each piece of her meticulously maintained narrative was suddenly under scrutiny. The board members, many of whom had blindly followed her leadership for years, started exchanging uncertain glances. But the real bombshell was yet to come. Jake had discovered something about Martha's past, not through malice, but through careful, methodical research. A story that explained, though never excused, her relentless pursuit of neighborhood perfection. 30 years ago, Martha had lost her only child, a teenage son, in a swimming accident. Not in their neighborhood, but in a community pool with inadequate safety measures. Her subsequent transformation from a mild-mannered librarian to a hyper-vigilant HOA enforcer suddenly made a tragic kind of sense. Her enforcement wasn't just about rules. It was about prevention, about protecting others from the pain she had experienced. Rachel's presentation continued, methodical and precise. Each board member received a comprehensive breakdown of the legal inconsistencies in the neighborhood's governance. Martha's decades of enforcement were being systematically dismantled, not through emotional argument, but through cold, hard facts. Martha remained silent, but her silence was not defeat. Not yet. In that moment, she was processing, calculating. Her mind was already 3 moods ahead, considering how to salvage not just her position, but her fundamental mission of neighborhood protection. The Thompson family had no idea that they had just entered the most dangerous phase of their conflict. Martha Pemberton was about to show them what true determination looked like. In the weeks following the explosive HOA board meeting, an uneasy truce settled over Oak Ridge Estates. Martha Pemberton had not been removed from her position, but her absolute authority had been significantly undermined. Jake and Rachel Thompson watched and waited. What nobody expected was Martha's next move. Instead of retreating or lashing out, she did something completely unexpected. She approached the Thompsons, not with a violation notice, but with a proposition. "I want to help design a community safety program," she said, her voice stripped of its previous combative edge. The tragedy of her past, the loss of her son, hung in the air between them, unspoken but powerful. The proposed program would create comprehensive safety guidelines for neighborhood pools, drawing from her extensive research and personal experience. It wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about prevention. Rachel, ever the strategist, saw an opportunity for genuine community improvement. Jake, who had been prepared for continued conflict, found himself experiencing something closer to empathy. Their daughter, the catalyst of so much drama, watched curiously as adults who had been bitter enemies began to collaborate. The viral video that had once humiliated Martha now became a turning point. The neighborhood that had mocked her now saw something different. Not a tyrannical enforcer, but a deeply wounded woman trying to protect others from her own profound loss. Martha's transformation wasn't complete. She was still meticulous, still precise. But something had fundamentally shifted. The rule book was no longer a weapon, but a tool for genuine community protection. The pool that had started everything remained its fence exactly as it was. Not because Martha had been defeated, but because she now understood the difference between blind enforcement and meaningful safety. As summer drew to a close, an unexpected peace settled over Oak Ridge Estates. The Thompsons' pool became a gathering place. Children splashed, parents watched, and Martha Pemberton, once the neighborhood's most feared resident, could be seen occasionally at the edge of the gathering, watching, but no longer judging. The beach ball that had started it all, it sat preserved in Martha's home office, a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected conflicts lead to the most profound understanding. But Martha being Martha, she had carefully measured and documented its exact location. Some things, after all, never fully change.